Hey folks, today we're going to be talking about the new double blocking lens strategy. I have done some math, I've updated my spreadsheet a bit. We're going to dive into that and analyze it. So if you're not familiar, the lenses are what determines how your prophecy rolling works. The classic has been to use the lens of rhyme, the lens of wealth, always, and then one other lens like unique or a specific item type or something like that. And in this video, we're going to talk about how that might not always be the best case anymore and how there might be another option depending on what you want and when to use it. Anyway, if you do like math and spreadsheets and all this fun stuff, please consider leaving a like on the video. It helps support the channel immensely. And yeah, let's jump into it. I have made a few updates. There was a couple bugs. One of them was the non-mono plus mono math was not actually working correctly, so I've updated the calculations for that, and now it should be working. Another issue was that if you were using multiple of the same type lens, like if you were using unique weapons twice, both of those lenses, it was treating it as multiplicative instead of additive. EHG confirmed it is additive, so I fixed that. Before, it was making it seem like stacking the same item type lenses was really high value, but it's actually not that great because it's additive. So that was another thing. And finally, I also fixed the reroll math. It was starting at 1. So if you have 0 expected rerolls, like you're expected to get what you want immediately, I was treating it as if you had 1 reroll, which was adding to the cost. And that does actually end up changing the calculations a bit, especially for cheaper prophecies where the favor cost of the reroll plays a bigger part of the total cost. So changing that actually further favored the double blocking lens strategy versus before. So quickly talking about what the double blocking lens strategy actually is, what it does. So if you go over to the sheet here, if you run the monolith blocker and the non-monolith blocker, the only remaining prophecy conditions are generic ones. So like kill Nemesis, kill Exiled Mage, kill Champion. These ones are very fast to complete. They're very simple. There's no like kill this specific timeline boss. Basically the way the math works out, as you can see here, if you only use one lens, so if you, for example, only use the non-monolith blocker and you don't block monolith as well, it's pretty bad. It's not really worth it. You can see the difference in rerolls per lens used is actually quite bad. So you never want to only use the non-monolith blocker. So you still end up with like a lot of bad events, and most events are already monolith anyway. So non-mono blocker doesn't actually do that much. And also just blocking monolith is also pretty bad because you still do want a lot of the monolith events. There's just so many of them that blocking monolith is also bad. The only time you ever want to use one of these blocking lenses, monolith or non-monolith, is if you are using them both together. That's the only time it's favor efficient. So you can see here the difference in rerolls, 98% per lens. So it's making a huge difference. If we move over here to the actual prophecy conditions, so this is the entire list of possible prophecy conditions that you can get. This is rolled independently of the rewards. So when you roll a prophecy, a reward is selected from the reward list over here, and a condition is selected from the condition list over here. So you can see the conditions here organized by category. So you can see monolith and high corruption. When you block monolith, you're blocking all of these. And when you block non-monolith, you are blocking all of these. So when you block both, the only thing that is left is these here. And one thing to note about the monolith prophecies is a lot of them are actually not that great. If you're running one timeline, which is mostly what people do in endgame, you're probably not going to be regularly killing all of these bosses. You might just be killing one, so you generally don't want most of these prophecies end up being kind of bad, and that's over half of the monolith prophecies that you don't actually want. Shade of Oreo, a lot of people are not actually running it unless you are resetting your timeline or doing the confluence, or you're doing the Shade Ambush Weaver node, which doesn't even proc that often anyway. But yeah, unless you're doing that, The shade is also not super great. And a few of these rarer enemies are also kind of a pain as well. So like Void Horror is kind of not great. Immortalize is kind of not great. Giant Scorpion, these aren't in all the timelines. They're somewhat rare and stuff like that. So a lot of these conditions end up not being that great. So when you only leave the normal prophecies left, the generic ones, you end up with this. And Diamond Matron and Siege Golem are actually kind of bad too. The Matron you can proc in campaign. You just go to the final zone with the Diamond Matrons, but you really don't want to be doing that. Siege Golems are kind of just a pain. Even if you're in a timeline that has them, they're super rare. So personally, I don't like these. What I've been trying lately is I just do double blocker, mono, non-mono, and then I just grab everything except Diamond Matron and Siege Golem. And that's the math that you just saw over here. So that's the math I've already done where it can actually be better than using Wealth and Rhyme. So moving over to some actual examples of where these can end up being better than Wealth and Rhyme. So I made a few notes up here at the top. So the first thing I tried was unique armors. So I tried helmets, boots, and body armor. Say you want all of that. You'll just grab any of those prophecies you see. So I tested it with the math on double blocker plus unique. So you're getting 0.18 rerolls, and the cost per item is 259. So this is the most efficient in this scenario. Then I tried double blocker plus wealth. So wealth is, it has a cost multiplier now. And it was, you can see a lot more rerolls. A lot of the cost differential here comes from the rerolls. And then I tried blocker plus rhyme. Rhyme is actually a little bit more favor efficient than wealth, but you have to do whatever it is twice as many times to get the proc. So my personal preference for this is actually the blocker plus wealth, just because you can fill more prophecies onto your board. So with wealth, you're getting twice as many total items out of your prophecy board. And it still procs the same speed as unique. So if you want to burn through favor very quickly, this is actually what I prefer, even though it's a little bit less favor efficient. But if you're like running lower corruption or something, or you're not farming favor very fast, you could just do double blockers plus unique in this scenario, and it does actually end up being pretty favor efficient. So those are your blocker plus 2 times lens. And then finally, I compared to the classic double blocker plus unique. So that's what I would have recommended last season. And you can see the rerolls is way higher, which is where all of the extra cost comes from. But the wealth and rhyme, now that it has an actual cost multiplier, this is also increasing the cost. So it ends up being kind of bad. Where wealth and rhyme can actually still be good is for the cheaper prophecies. So because they now have a cost multiplier, for anything that's very cheap and you just end up expecting a lot of rerolls, the wealth and the rhyme still can be pretty good. So the second example I have here for idols, I just want ornate idols. That's the only box I have checked in the region. So I tested with the different lenses, did the math, and if you do blocker plus idol, you're at 82.51 expected favor cost per item with 3.25 rerolls. And then you can see the rerolls goes way up when we do different stuff, like when we remove the item type. And the cost goes way up because of that. So you're just doing way more rerolls. And because the items are already cheap to begin with, you just get destroyed by the rerolls. So it's not that great. And then the last one here is we have wealth, rhyme, and idol. You can see this one is actually slightly more favor efficient than baseline, even though the rerolls are way higher just because the items are so cheap. Having more reroll efficiency, which is what wealth and rhyme does, ends up being the best. So yeah, it might not sound super intuitive, but the way you can basically consider wealth and rhyme is that because you're getting 4 times more items per prophecy you click, you're actually kind of like cutting the rerolls by 4. So here we're at 12. It's actually more like we have 3 rerolls because each one is worth 4. So it actually is slightly more reroll efficient. You're clicking reroll fewer times, with wealth rhyme than you are with double blocker. So it doesn't necessarily feel better, but it is quite a bit better. And then finally, I gave another example here where I tried a really arbitrarily expensive prophecy, so 1 LP belts. This isn't a prophecy you would ever actually want to take. It's trash. But for the sake of example, just to show the cost multiplier at work here, the belt plus double blocker is the most favor efficient. And then you have blocker plus wealth, blocker plus rhyme, and then wealth, rhyme, and belt. So what's interesting here is because there's only one of these prophecies, you end up with so many rerolls that it actually kind of overpowers the wealth rhyme thing, and it still ends up not being the most expensive, but you can see how the difference is pretty big. Even going from double blocker with belt to double blocker with wealth, the cost difference is quite large because it's multiplying the cost of that prophecy. So yeah, not super ideal in this scenario. So you'll want to try this out yourself for different regions. If you're doing something like a weapon region, for example, you will always want an item type just because there's so many different possible prophecies in this region. You never want to not include an item type, as it's also 40% per lens. So these are extremely high value. You want that. And then from there, it's up to you if you want to combine that with wealth and rhyme or with double blocker. They're both completely viable options. All right, so here we are in game. I'll show you quickly what I've been doing for at least this particular prophecy reward that I want. So here we are at the armor region. I want helmets, boots, and body armors. So we'll roll some prophecies and I'll show you what it looks like. So here we are. This is one that I would want. Exiled Mage, unique helmet, great. Unique helmet, exiled Mage. Belt we don't actually want, reroll. We're doing this live, so could be sketchy. So Siege Golem is one that I am actually going to skip. If you're doing a timeline that has Siege Golem, you can do it if you want. But the math I did that showed that this is actually still better does exclude Siege Golem. So if you were using Siege Golem, you're taking this, this would be even more favor efficient than my spreadsheet was showing. So anyway, continuing, we have unique armor, armor, LP. So we have body armor, nemesis. This is a good one. We have unique helmet, 10. We'll take the most expensive one because generally they're more cost effective. If you have multiple good ones, take the most expensive one generally. Okay, and then we have boots. Here's another good one. Body armor, diamond matron, I don't want. You can proc it in campaign, but I don't feel like doing that. Then we have unique armor. I could actually take unique armor since I want most of the armor things, but I'm not going to. Body armor champion, this is a good one. We'll take this. Boots, this is a good one. Siege Golem, I don't want. Armor I could take, but I'm not going to. LP, we don't want. Body armor, this is a good one. We'll take. Anyway, I think you get the point. So that's what it looks like. So here you can see our prophecies. We've already filled up half a board. We spent, I don't know, I wasn't paying attention, like 100 and something thousand favor. And all of these prophecies will proc within like 2 or 3 maps. Like you'll clear this almost immediately. Before you'd end up with a bunch of stragglers and stuff where you just have some prophecies that sit around forever because you get bad RNG on what you end up killing. But yeah, with this, my board is going to be cleared extremely fast. I have been stockpiling favor. I usually sit pretty high. And then if there's something I want, like for my build, I'm missing an item, I can just quickly burn through my favor. The other advantage of this with this setup is you don't end up overshooting as much as with the full, like the double wealth rhyme. So this is just a lot more quick to get out there. If you do want a little bit more favor efficiency with the same strategy, you could just swap out wealth for rhyme. It will take twice as long to proc, but it's still honestly going to be fine. It's still going to be procking very fast. But yeah, with rhyme instead of wealth, you will get more favor efficiency. If you're on lower corruption or something like that, rhyme is probably going to be fine for you. So anyway, yeah, that's pretty much all I have for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. As always, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.